Hello and welcome back to the Atlantis channel. Today I have with us my very first interview guest ever, Alex. I am so excited to have her with us again. We're going to be diving into a little bit more of Alex's personal story, which is always so valuable to hear, I think, but also something that's hard to gather. Like within the Instagram space, it's like no matter how much as creators we talk about ourselves, sometimes it's hard as a consumer to really like, what is her story? Where did she come from? What is that thing that really motivates her being, all of the people online trying to sell something. But so I'm really excited to have this opportunity to talk to Alex today about her journey with alcohol and sobriety, which is a big topic.
Yes.
So not to just like, make that lighthearted. It's like this is a big topic. So yeah, welcome to the show, Alex. First off, how are you
Thank
doing
you.
today?
I'm great. I'm really excited to be back. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I'm excited to have you back as well. And so yeah, I'm curious just to hear your story, maybe even just starting with when did you make that decision to become sober? And what was like that pinnacle moment for you where you were like, okay, we're doing this. I'm ready to be done.
Yes. So that it's an interesting piece with this, and I'm really excited to have this conversation because I feel like it's not really talked about enough. And
Mm-mm.
I hope with this conversation that if there's even just one person that's going through something
Mm.
similar or has gone excuse me, or has gone through something similar, that this will be something that they can feel seen through. So I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to start with that. But I started drinking when I was, I believe, 20, like early 20s. And throughout my 20s, and I can, go more into that story as we speak, but throughout my 20s, I really started to see that maybe I was different than the rest of my peers. So it really became a journey of realizing that when the night was over, I was always the one that was looking for one more drink, one more shot,
Mm.
one more drink, one more bar. And when everyone was going to bed, I was always looking around like, who's that one person that's going to want to keep drinking with me? And
Yeah.
I used the kind of blanket excuse of being in my 20s, like, yeah, you're in your 20s. It's time to be young and wild and free. You're allowed to make dumb decisions. And so I kind of allowed that to be just a really big excuse for letting myself get a little too crazy on the weekends. Um, and it wasn't until I started to, well, I'll start with this point here is that I decided a couple years ago to finally get sober for a year. And it
Mm.
was absolutely incredible and absolutely incredibly hard at the same time. And
Yeah.
what I really would love to touch on as well is that I decided after a year that I had done enough healing and personal development that I was okay to start drinking again. And with that decision, I started to see that the substance itself was still affecting me, even though I had grown so much as a person,
Mm-hmm.
even though I really had healed so much, but just the alcohol itself, it was still affecting me. It was still bringing out old patterns within me. So then this past year, that was last year, I decided to start drinking again. I made the decision to stop it fully, 100%,
Mm.
remove it from my life. No, I'll stop drinking for 6 months. I'll stop drinking for a year and see how I feel. It's become a 100% commitment for my life now. So that
Oh,
is,
wow.
yeah, very exciting.
Yeah, I got chills when you said that. It's like, man, that's huge. And that's so interesting to hear that it was almost like let me say this and then you tell me if I'm wrong or if I'm kind of accurate here, but what it sounds like is it was almost like I just need to be stronger so that I could handle the alcohol. Like there was like this part of you that was like, I just need to heal, I just need to be stronger, and then it'll be okay. Then it will, be okay with me and my system. Does that feel accurate?
Yes, absolutely. And the way I started viewing alcohol is it's actually a relationship that we have with it. And so for me, it's like
Mm-hmm.
this relationship with it. I kept thinking, once I get to a certain level of healing, once I've
Mm-hmm.
added so much more in my life, then it's not going to be as toxic of a relationship to me. But if, you were saying that about another person, you'd probably be like, well, maybe this person isn't for me if I have to do all of this work in order to let it be in my life. And so
Mm.
I had to have a really deep conversation with myself, many deep conversations with myself, to get to a point of realizing that I just don't think this substance is for me. And
Yeah.
so that was a really big revelation to come to. Absolutely.
Yeah. How did it feel to commit 100%?
It felt very grounding. It felt,
Mm.
I think, one of the biggest things with people that struggle with sobriety is, as we know in the personal development world, one of the most important things that we can do is to develop trust within ourselves.
Yeah.
And what happens when you continue to say, I'm not going to drink. I'm going to do dry January and not drink. And then within 2 weeks, you're like, it's okay. Or
Yeah.
I'm not going to drink until the weekend. And then it's Wednesday and my coworker invites me out for happy hour. And I'm like, oh, okay, what's one drink? I don't want to be the odd one out. Or going out to drink and saying I was only going to have two, but I ended up
Mm-hmm.
getting way too drunk. Those little things were causing ruptures in the trust with myself for so long, for like the last decade of my life, really, that
Yeah.
it takes a long time, or it took time to be able to heal that again. And so to be able to now really commit to it and say, this is not for me, and I trust
Mm-hmm.
myself that I'm going to follow through with this, that to me is one of the ultimate forms of self-love.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm curious, this maybe seems, I don't know, I'm just gonna ask this question how it's coming to me. Why why did you choose, like you had a choice here, right? You had a choice to just like, well, I like alcohol and I just want to keep drinking it, even though, it comes with its own challenges, but like you had a choice. You could have just stayed in that world, right? Or you made the choice that you did make, and the choice you had was I can sober up and choose to live my life, the rest of my life sober. Why did you choose what you chose? Because you could have like just stayed with the alcohol, right? You could have continued to manage that relationship that you call toxic and just lived your life in that place. Why did you choose the other path?
I know we touched a little bit on our last interview that I do somatic work and breath
Mm-hmm.
work and energy work. And so when I started to get interested in these things and really start to take these tools on for myself, I started to realize how important our energy is, that it is the most important thing in our life. And if we're not protecting that, then life can feel very hard. And I started to realize that as time was going on, I was spending so much time controlling the substance that even though I had cut it down, let's say 90%, there was still 10% of my energy that was always going towards, okay, you've
Mm,
had two. Okay, you're good now. Okay, should I have just one more? Am I feeling too drunk? Is it okay to drink tonight? I'm not going to drink tonight, but maybe I should just have one. And it's like, that energy was just, it was depleting me, even though, yes, I had controlled it so much more now that I was on my
mm,
healing journey, but it was still leaking so much energy from me. And I realized how important it is to have that energetic hygiene and
yeah.
to really allow myself to close that off so it stops leaking out.
Yeah, that's amazing self-awareness too, right? To be able to recognize this is taking up so much of my energy, not just your energy when you're actively drinking, but the energy of trying to control it and manage it. And those, I can imagine just like intrusive thoughts towards desiring it, or is this enough? Is it too much? Like all of that to have the self-awareness to see that that was depleting your energy when you have this desire for a different life, right? This desire to place that energy into another area of your life. That's
Yes.
incredible.
And I think getting intentional about what kind of life I do want was really important, because even on the days that I could just have a couple drinks and go home and be fine, I still wasn't waking up feeling good. And
Yeah.
I had placed such an intentional goal of feeling good in my life and what that means to me. And once you start getting clear on the kind of life you want and the kind of life you want to feel,
Mm-hmm.
then you start to think, okay, is this thing, is this person, is this substance having me feel this way or not having me feel this way? And does it fit in my life anymore? And I can't, for me personally, I can't have in integrity, I can't have a breathwork business and hold a
Mm.
container for other people if I spent my Sunday with a headache because I drank too much. Like, it just didn't feel, there was a rupture there again of where I wanted to be and who I knew that I was and the kind of life I wanted to have. And it didn't fit anymore to have a day where I had a hangover.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that you touched on that integrity with yourself. You've come to
Yeah.
that a few times. It's like that act of self-love, having that integrity with yourself and building trust within yourself. For you, that edge and that thing that you were able to just cut out in order to boost all those areas of your life and your own personal relationship was alcohol.
Yeah.
Yeah, so powerful. Was it easy?
Thank you. No. It it really wasn't. And I only say that like it's not meant to be to sound like a big scary thing, because there is
Mm-mm.
a lot of joy in the healing and a lot of joy in building that trust back up with yourself. But it is a hard decision. But we have to choose our hard. It was also
Yeah.
hard to wake up in the morning in a panic, not knowing what I did the night before, or just wake up in
Mm.
the morning and I'm running late because I had 3 or 4 drinks and my head was hurting and I'm rushing now out the door to do what I need to do. And that to me is so hard. And I thought about, if I keep doing this for another 10 years, if I keep doing this for another 20, 30 years, where am I going to be? And to me, that is incredibly hard as well.
Mm.
It is it's easy to go out and drink like everybody else. Yes. But it's still hard because over the long periods of time, it was going to catch up to me. And so, yes, it was hard to make that decision, but it's like I'm going the opposite way now. It's hard now. And the more and
Mm.
more I go, the more and more I take care of myself and make these decisions for myself, I'm going to look down the road 10 years of sobriety and things are going to feel so much easier because I made that hard decision now.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I love this. I love this concept. This is something I'm constantly thinking about in my own life. It's I can choose the easy, hard now. Being easy
Mhm.
now, it's an easy decision now, but it's going to make my future hard. Or I can choose the hard decision now, which makes my future simpler or easier. Um, so you just did a beautiful job of describing that. And ultimately, I can imagine there was just that self introspective awareness where you just had to sit with yourself and get really, really, really clear on what was happening and where that would lead and what you desired to happen, where you desired to go in your life. What was that like for you? What was it that helped you have those introspective moments?
Having compassion for myself instead of
Mm,
judgment, because when I would wake up in the morning and feel so much shame because I drank too much, and then the shame turns into judgment, and then the judgment turns into self-hatred, and it was just this terrible cycle that I was in. And the negative that manifested as negative self-talk,
yeah.
the thoughts in my head of like, oh, of course you did this again, this and that. Like, it was such a bad cycle that I was in. And one of the best ways that you can break a cycle is by having compassion for yourself.
Mm,
And instead of, and I think we touched on this in our last interview, of instead of being like, why are you doing this? It's like, okay, why are we doing this? And I
Mm-hmm.
always come back to that as being one of the key questions that has transformed my life, because when we allow ourselves to look at our decisions from a compassionate standpoint rather than berating ourselves for being human and making human mistakes, but it's really just like having human lessons is like how I like to look at it,
Yeah.
then the whole energy around it has completely changed. And the first time I got sober for that year, it was because I was in such a bad state of my drinking where I was constantly blacking out. I had reached like the pinnacle of my addiction, and I was in so much shame around it that I was like, I have to change myself because I hate myself so much and I hate the
Yeah.
things that I do. And so while removing the substance from my life did help, I wasn't getting underneath it, and I wasn't having compassion for the person within me that was making those choices. And so this time around, when I started drinking again and realizing, ooh, this is still not good for me. It's coming from a place of empowerment now. Like, I'm removing this from
Mm,
my life because I love myself. I'm not removing this
yeah.
from my life because I hate myself. I'm removing it from my life because I love me and I want the best for me. And now it's like, well, obviously I'm going to keep going with this because I'm coming from a place of love. I'm not coming from a place of shame anymore.
Mm, that is so powerful. And I'm just going to repeat something you said, that compassion breaks cycles. And I think that's
Yeah.
what an empowering story that you have to tell, because of the different angles and perspectives in which you have personally experienced
Thank you.
this, the sobriety journey, and just that lack of self-compassion in the beginning. Like, it still helped you move forward to make a new decision, right? To have a new experience and to see, because now you had proof of what your life could be like without alcohol. But then you got to go to that next level and that next step and that next part of your healing, which is like, now what could it be like if I also had compassion for myself? And if I also had love for myself? That's
Mm.
so powerful. In retrospect, hindsight we have to be careful with, but in retrospect, could you have made that initial decision out of love? Or do you think that was just kind of part of it? Like, you just needed to kind of break clean? What would you have done differently, maybe, if you
Mm.
could have? It's hindsight, but
Yes. So I'm thinking of one event in particular where I had first made that decision that I was going to be sober. And I think even at the
mm,
time I said, I'm going to be sober for a year and see what happens. Um, and with 6 weeks later, I went to a wedding to cater,
mm,
and someone offered me a drink at the end of the night. And I remember thinking, man, I haven't drank for 6 weeks though. So it's probably okay, right? Just to have a glass of wine with my
mm,
coworkers. Um, and one drink led to another and to another. And I was actually the one that was like, let's go to a bar after, you know? And so then we went out to a bar and then we just kept drinking and drinking. And I got so drunk. So like I just embarrassed myself. And then I woke up the next day, and the amount of shame that I felt, like I think that that might have been the most, just I would, because I had already made that big promise I wasn't going to drink for a
yeah,
year. And not
yeah,
only was it 6 weeks later, but I also then got very drunk and embarrassed myself in front of my coworkers. And I remember just that moment, I just wonder what would have happened if I just would have looked
mm,
at it, like if I would have put on a different lens of like, okay, like how can I give myself love? How can I treat myself as I would if my best friend came crying to me because they embarrassed themselves or they made a mistake?
yeah,
Because if someone came to me, anyone in my life came to me and told me that, like I would have been wrapping them in a blanket, making them some hot tea and like, trying
yeah,
to cheer them up and listen to them and be there for them. But instead, I just berated myself. And that started the longest period of time of a depressive episode that I've ever had. And it was, it's really crazy to look back on that time and just think like, wow, there was, I was not the same person that I am today. And I have so much compassion for that person
Mm-hmm.
now. And I just wonder like what would have happened if that night of the wedding I just would have woken up, and yeah, I would have still been sad about it. I'm still human. You would have still been embarrassed about
Yeah.
it. But it's like how if I would have treated myself as I would treat somebody that I loved, then things could have been completely different. And I could have turned that more into an empowering part of my story.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, it's at the same time, it is a part of my story to go through that, to go through it that way. Um, and I do know that sobriety isn't like with anything, it's not a straight line up. It's very up and down. And so this time around, when after the year I decided to try to drink, and at first it was fine, and then I started to see like old patterns, like, oh, I just want one more, and all these things
Mm-hmm.
started to come back. And this time it was like, okay, how can I have love and compassion for myself? And that has made all the difference. So I guess to answer your question in a long way, like I just would have treated myself with more respect.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's beautiful. How is your life different now? Like alcohol aside, like what else is different?
I am able to hold so much more responsibility in my life.
Mm,
And with that, I'm able to build a business. And I tried so many times and wasn't able to stick with it. And then that also goes back to I also didn't have trust built in myself that I could stick with something. And
yeah.
so now I'm able to hold responsibilities in my life and making choices for myself that are healthy feel so much easier. I get better
Mm.
sleep. And um, I just, I come from life in a place of self-love. I treat myself as a friend, and that changes all the decisions that I make in my life. And so I would say my life looks completely different than it used to, really.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say to someone who's in the thick of it? Like, say
Mm.
somebody sees this video, right? It piques their interest because there's something stirring inside their own soul. And so they're here and they're in the thick of it. What would you say to them?
I would just say, first and foremost, that it is okay to be human.
Yeah.
Like, it is so okay to be human. If we came to this earth and never made a mistake, then what have we learned? And so I just want to say, first and foremost, it's okay if you've made these mistakes. And I say mistakes lightly, but it's like it's okay that
Yeah.
you are struggling with alcohol. Or it's also okay if you're not getting blacked out all the time, but you're starting to realize that maybe it's not for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I also want to say that it's okay to feel like it's a hard decision to stop, because our society really puts importance on it. And
Yes.
so that is a big point there is when I stopped drinking, even the people that used to get mad at me for getting too drunk were like, oh, but we still want you to go out and drink with us, like we just don't
Yeah.
want you to get super drunk. And so and so I just want to say that our society, when you're celebrating something, you drink. When you're going out on
Mm-hmm.
a date, you drink. When you're feeling sad, you drink, or stressed, you drink. Like it's a big part in our society. And so to try not to let there be shame if it feels like it's a
Mm-hmm.
really hard decision, because it might feel like, well, why am I struggling with it? Like, why can't I just stop drinking? Well, it's a hard thing to do. And
Yeah.
so it's it's okay that it feels hard, and to just try to see through the lens of how you would treat a friend as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think you brought up an interesting point that I've had conversations with a few people in my life about when they have become sober after having been a big drinker and then they've become sober. One of the hardest things that I've heard, this is, I'm not speaking from experience here, but just from hearing with clients and friends, is that your relationship shifts. Like all of a sudden, like you can go out to the bar with friends and you're not going to drink. Like that level of self-commitment and trust is still there, but it's like it's not fun to be sober with a bunch of drunk people, or vice versa. And so there's like that's something I commonly hear when I talk to people about this, is how hard it can be because your relationships shift and all of a sudden those, what do you do? Like what do you do now that you're sober? That's what I hear, is like I don't know what to do. Like there's almost like a
Yes,
boredom aspect. Yeah, could you speak to
so
that?
true. Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up. Because there really is a sense of belonging when you are drinking with
Yeah.
everybody else, especially if you are in more of a drinking culture with your friends, which, I definitely was, which is a big reason I really got thrown into that lifestyle. And then when you make a decision like that for yourself, you are the odd one out. And like you
Mm-hmm.
said, once you build up enough trust within yourself to still be able to go out with them, you almost like don't want to a lot of the times because you're in a loud, noisy place. People are drunk around you, they're bumping into you and they want to stay out late. And you're like, well, I'm tired because I don't have alcohol that's keeping me going for the night.
Yeah.
So for me, it's something that really helped me was I started to look at alcohol and think, because yes, I could write a whole list right now of all the bad things that it would do to me and make me feel like, and the negative side effects. But I also needed to look at it from a positive side effect as well. I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, what does alcohol give me that I feel like was good in my life? And
Yeah.
that sounds interesting, but the process was I looked at it and I'm like, it gave me community
Mm-hmm.
and it gave me fun because I knew when I went out, I always had friends that I had that were down to go out for a drink. And then we would start drinking and we would have these really deep conversations and it would be so fun. And then you're laughing a lot. And so it's like looking at it, okay, so it gave me community that I was seeking and it gave me fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those seem really good. And then that's why, you don't want to forget all the other things that it was, all the more negative side effects. But what can I add into my life that's going to give me community? And what can I add in my life that's going to give me fun now?
Yeah.
And it will take time because like you said, that boredom piece, it's like, well, maybe I just want to go out for a night and be stupid with my friends and this and that. But it's like, what are other things that we can add into our life so it's just not like we took this huge chunk out of our life and now
Yeah.
something's missing? How can we fill that bucket back up with different things that make us feel the same way? And so for
Mm-hmm.
me it's like, for community, especially when I started getting into breath work and energy work, I started to really reach out to other people that had similar values as me.
Mm-hmm.
Started connecting with people who their idea of fun isn't going out and drinking all the time. It's people that are building businesses or that are really interested in spiritual development, or even just people that would prefer to have a cup of coffee at a cafe with me rather than go out to
Yeah.
happy hour. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's not like I, don't hang out with people that drink, but just being able to be with people that value something different as well. And then going on an exploration. What's fun to me? What else is fun for me? And that started a whole journey of self exploration, of figuring out more about me, which was
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. What is fun for you?
So for me, I've had some amazing quality time now with
Mm.
family over the weekends because I used to spend my weekends like going out to drink. That was what I did. It was fun, yes, but now it's like I am so present on a Sunday. Like I don't have
Mm.
hangovers on a Sunday. Like that is It is a beautiful thing to be able to wake up at a good time on a Sunday morning, make a hot cup of coffee, be there with my boyfriend and be present. I don't have a headache. I don't have, I don't have anything that's stopping me from being here in this moment.
Yeah.
And so that the quality time for me with people really became so much better. Um, and our dates became so much better too, because they
Mm.
weren't, you have to get more creative with it. So things like, instead of going out together, why don't we just share like a nice meal and then go mini golfing? Or why don't we,
Mm-hmm.
go to a cool cafe we found that's like half of a bookstore and half of a coffee shop and pick out a book? And there was just, you get more creative with different activities to try. And you also don't have to Uber anywhere either, because you're not going to drink
Yeah.
too much. So um, yeah, so I would just say that for anyone that's in the thick of it and is struggling with it, is to do that practice. Like, look at the things that
Mm-hmm.
that it gives you in your life that you don't want, but what is it giving you as well? And how can you begin to fill that bucket up? Maybe even before you stop. Like, it doesn't need to be like a cold turkey thing. Maybe you can start adding those things into your life now, so it feels like
Mm-hmm.
less of a hole that's missing from your life as you begin to let go of it. So it looks different for
Yeah.
everybody, but I think that that's a beautiful start, is to just start getting curious of how it makes you feel and how can you feel that way with other things in your life as well.
Yeah. This is so good. So many golden nuggets here. And then just really coming to that compassion.
Yes.
I just think that's like just the more you can come back to compassion, and it's not to say we're not going to slip into self-hatred or slip into, those harder moments of humanity. I think compassion is really standing out to me because that's my word that I've chosen for
Mm,
2024. And you've also spoken to. So my word is compassion. And then my phrase is I have compassion for my humanity. And so
mm.
you've spoken to that as just coming back to that compassion as much as you can. And I really appreciate you, Alex, for sharing your story, for being so open and so vulnerable. And I know that people are going to relate to this so much.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really beautiful to be able to share this piece of my
Hmm.
story from a place of empowerment now, and I really hope that if anyone's going through the same thing, please don't hesitate to reach out if you just want a listening ear, because I have been there. I understand it.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a blessing to be in this
Mm.
point in my life now, for sure.
Yeah. And what's even more amazing is that Alex is a somatic coach and a breathwork facilitator. And I'll let you kind of talk to this. From my perspective, that's like one of the most incredible things that someone could do when they're on this journey, is to connect with a somatic coach and or a breathwork facilitator to really help you come to that place of introspection, to bring that self-awareness, to look inwards and really see, where is my energy depleting and where can I, give myself what I need. Yeah, I'll let you speak more to that. What is it like to
Yeah.
have a somatic coach or breathwork sessions when you're on your sobriety journey?
Yes, breath work and somatic work has been an absolute game changer for
Mm.
me. And when we do breath work and different somatic work that brings us into the body, we do start to get those intuitive messages that come through.
Yeah.
And what is interesting is when I started doing breath work and these different tools, is I would hear, like, you will never be the best version of yourself until you stop drinking. And
Mm.
it was never like, if you stop drinking, it was like, when you stop. Like, it was like I always knew deep down that that was the path I had to go, but I did not want to admit it, and I did not want to go there. But because I continually went back to my breath practice, and I kept hearing this within me and
Mm.
feeling it within me, and I was also filling my cup up so much with my own fresh energy, that it was like, once you start doing that and getting these intuitive messages and these feelings, and you're feeling so rejuvenated by your own energy, these things that don't make you feel good, it's not going to light you up in the same way. It's like, when
Yeah.
when I'm really, really dedicated to a breath practice and dedicated to turning inward, it it's very hard to ignore a substance that makes you feel very bad. And it just doesn't align. And so the more that we turn inward with breath practice, especially like having someone guide you in it, it's the more that we start to figure out like what is an alignment in my life. And
Mm,
and it feels so much more possible when you have someone, when you have yourself in this practice, and when you have someone else there holding you accountable, holding this container for you, guiding you in these deep journeys. It just feels so much more possible to be able to take these steps forward, even if it is going to be tricky to
yeah.
remove something in your life that you don't know if you can, or you don't know if it's possible. But the more that you do this work, the more that you turn in with your body, with breath work, with somatic work, with energy work, it just, you start to see such an openness of possibility in your life, and it just feels so much more possible to live in alignment with who you
Mm,
are, and you build that trust back within yourself so much quicker. It's like it feels like a hack in life almost. It's like you can quicken the process so much the more that you do work like this. And so being able to be guided in breath work or in somatic work is, it's one of my favorite parts of healing, and it's one of my favorite parts of my business as well, is to be able to guide people in that too.
it is a total life hack.
Yeah,
It's
it
like,
is,
it
right?
makes me giddy to think of it like that because it is. It's like I'm sitting on this gold mine, this secret that like I'm trying to get the world to understand, but it's totally it does. It
Yeah,
just speeds up the process in an
yeah,
incredible way. Yeah, where can people
yeah.
find you if they want to work with you?
Yes. So my Instagram is Energy with Alex,
Mm,
and that's pretty much the main way to find me right now. So definitely shoot me a DM if you want to chat, if anything I said resonated with you. And I right now do somatic coaching. I have a 4-month coaching program that I do one-on-one with people that includes different somatic tools, breath work, Reiki, and I'm also really building out this new community on Instagram. So I'm going to start offering some one-on-one breath work and somatic sessions as
mm,
well, just kind of as like an introductory, like let's meet, let's get in each other's energies. If you're just curious about breath work or somatic work, it's also a really great opportunity too. So yeah, that's where to find
yeah.
me.
Ooh, I love it. Okay, last, I have two more questions just for fun, just kind of on the side. What is one of the songs you're listening to on repeat lately?
Mm. I'm a Swiftie.
There you
So,
go.
honestly, my favorite song is All Too Well, the 10-minute version.
Nice.
That song to me is like a spiritual experience in itself.
Do you like do breath work to it?
No, but that's a good
You
idea,
should.
right? Something different. But yeah, so I would say that's a song that I listen to quite
Mm,
often.
love it. Okay. And then if you're a reader, what book would you recommend to people right now?
Ooh. Um, The Time Traveler's Wife is a really
Mm,
cool book. And so definitely check that out if you're into fiction books. It's such a journey. I love it. I love a good romance, and it's got a twist as well. So
yeah. Ooh, I
yeah,
haven't read that one. I'm gonna have to
it's a good
check it
one.
out.
Really
All
good.
right. Amazing. Thank you so much, Alex, for being here. I appreciate you being vulnerable, sharing your story.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, I know it's going to really touch a lot of hearts. So thank you.